Emily, are we live?
Good to go.
All right. Guys, if you could give us just about a minute, we've got a few folks coming into the waiting room here, and we'll get started in just momentarily. All right, just quick double check. You guys are seeing my slides, Emily?
See you.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks for taking time out with us today. We appreciate everyone joining. My name is Kevin Brooks. I am the Business Development Manager for AWS at CDW, and I have responsibility for our state and local government business today. You'll see Joel Suarez on the call, who's a solutions architect who leads this solution from a technical standpoint at CDW. He had a last-minute issue and will not be joining us today, so I'm pinch hitting for his slides as well. Appreciate your patience as I go through the technical side of things. We're also joined by John Persano, who is the leader of Justice and Public Safety at AWS and in charge of their 911 solutions on the AWS side of the house. So with that, we will jump in. The challenges that we're talking about today, and I know you guys accepted the invite, and it talked about reducing staffing shortages, reducing 911 hold times. These are common issues across just about every PSAP in the country. And so the AWS solution that CDW has jointly developed with AWS is pretty interesting and leverages new technology, AI, natural language processing to automate those non-emergency calls that are coming into the same 911 center and allow you to get to those 911 calls more quickly and automate some portion of the non-emergency calls and have that picked up by this Amazon Connect solution. And with that, John Persano has been involved with this solution on the AWS side for some time and is going to share a little bit of perspective from the Amazon side of things as to how this got developed and where it's going. And then we're going to jump into a short video of the solution.
Thanks, Jeff. So good morning, good afternoon, everybody. John Persano. So I've been with AWS for almost 5 years now. And one of the very first things that I did when I joined the team, originally as the emergency communications lead, which is 911, fire EMS, and emergency management, was go out and do roadshows and listen to PSAPs, and we call them voice of the customer. So I sat in receive mode and listened to the challenges of the PSAP. Number one at that time was staffing. So everyone was asking, how can we assist with their staffing? How can technology assist? As we dove deeper into the amount of non-emergency calls and the impact of non-emergency calls on 911 centers. And when I say non-emergency, folks, I'm talking about calls placed to a 7 or a 10-digit line. Let's keep the conversation there for right now. We can entertain questions at the end about doing other things with 911. And the question was, how can we help mitigate that impact of those calls? So Doug Gartner, my technical counterpart, principal solutions architect, and I, with the help of some other technical experts, developed a call diversion process using Amazon Connect, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So basically, how do I adopt a kitten? How do I file this? How do I, what's the phone number for? All those noise questions that you get that takes away time from actually dealing with real emergencies. That was the intent to address. Since then, we have over 100 PSAPs that have deployed the solution either on their own or through AWS partners like CDW. And I think we're up to 3 to 4 million calls diverted in the last 2.5 years. Tremendous success across the board and very excited to talk about. So, Kev, I think that's enough, a little bit, kind of a quick overview, because what I'd really like to do is get through some of the slides. And then, Emily, is it okay if people can throw questions in the chat, and then you could just jump in and kind of interrupt us, and we do questions as we go? I prefer that, just so we don't forget.
Absolutely. And I guess I wanted to do a sound check. It sounds like I think I got a Q&A. Is everyone able to hear? I can hear just fine, so I want to make sure others are. Okay,
Sweet.
sounds like we are good to go.
All right, Kev, do you want to take the slides back and play the video? I am not catching audio. Okay, while Kevin's working on that, the reason why we're looking at Charleston is San Diego and Charleston were the first two to actually start this project. Charleston is by far the has been doing it the longest, and their numbers are very impressive. About 50% of their calls being diverted since they've employed this solution. So, Kev, I'll just kind of give background while you're working on that, and so the video clip Charleston has, I think I have 4 news articles and video clips from Charleston talking about that. And what Charleston did that was really important about this whole process is they really engaged with the community. When they were going to deploy this bot solution, they reached out and they told people, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is the use cases for, and most importantly, if you dial 911, you will get a human being. And they did that with the community, and they saw tremendous success with that. I'm still not catching the audio, buddy. So I can't stress enough, if you're thinking of these type of solutions, having a interaction with the local community, letting them know what you're doing and why, and most importantly, assuring people that if they dial a 911, they will get a human being. That was usually the biggest concern about leveraging some of these tools is what happens when I do need to talk to a person. So we can give it one more crack if you want, Kevin, and then we can move on.
Yeah, I'm trying it one more time here. Are you hearing that?
The moment you need magnesium.
Yes.
Good to go.
All right, sorry you're catching the ad at the front, but I had it queued up before, so bear with me.
Magnesium. Contact us for a free assessment.
And we're watching the tropics. We'll track the tropics for you coming up in just a couple of minutes.
A streamlined process to help both callers and dispatchers.
Charleston County is using new technology designed to differentiate between emergency and non-emergency calls. And Natalie Spalla joins us now to explain how it works and also why this was something the county says was needed.
Yeah, that's right, Katie and Tessa. When you call 911 in Charleston County, you are going to be connected with a human. But to speed up the process, the county is now offering a separate way for non-emergency callers to receive the help they need. Charleston County Consolidated Dispatch receives a lot of calls.
Just in the first quarter this year, we had 73,000 911 calls.
About half are non-emergency.
People call us if they have an animal issue, whether it's a lost kitten or a found kitten or a ferret or whatever they've got, they're calling us.
It's why the county just launched a machine learning Amazon tool designed specifically for non-emergency situations.
You have reached the Charleston County Consolidated 911 Center non-emergency line.
Callers are greeted by Amazon Connect's Matthew, who asks a series of short prompts.
Please give a brief description for your call. You can say things like animal control or check the welfare.
This frees up dispatchers to take emergency calls, giving them back priceless time.
This allows us to offload those to a machine learning environment that will allow people to report their calls without tying up a call ticket.
Like many other counties, Charleston has been working itself out of a staffing shortage. What was once roughly 30 to 40 vacant positions at the center has now become just 2 or 3. According to Lake, the new technology works to ensure call takers don't get overworked.
We feel that this will probably reduce our call volume going to people by at least 20%. And that's a large number when you start thinking about the number of minutes that are spent on these calls.
Now, Charleston County is one of just half a dozen counties in North America that are testing this new technology. The county wants to remind those who do dial 911.
So a couple of big takeaways from that video. I think that was a couple years ago, right, Kevin? If the date, I thought I saw 2023.
It was.
So,
yep.
Yeah, with some other additions, Charleston's just shy of 50% diversion right now. So Jim was talking about 20 in the video. They're up near 50. And the other big thing is, I don't have the stats for Charleston, but for a couple of the other PSAPs, the impact on 911 wait times has been dramatic. There's one that increased their call rate answering in 15 or 20 seconds or less on 911 by 16%. And another PSAP went 22 months without ever meeting the standard or the intent, right, of answering calls in 15 or 20 seconds or less. And then ever since they deployed the solution, they've met that 100% every single month since. So by taking your call takers, taking that burden off of your call takers to a certain extent, really makes a tremendous impact on your 911 lines, even though they're totally separate processes, right? We're not talking about answering a 911 call with a bot, but the impact of doing that on non-emergency is tremendous on 911. Yep.
Thanks, John. We'll walk through a couple of the mechanics here and then hopefully have some questions from the group. So the key features of this is, we always like to differentiate. This is not, we are not handling 911 calls. We are handling 10-digit calls, and we can accept calls if a call taker decides to route it over from a 911 call and redirects it to this system, but we're not actually handling 911 calls. That's an important distinction. We're trying to deflect as much a high percentage as we can of the non-emergency calls to free up those call takers to focus on the 911 calls. So with that, there's a direct benefit between the amount of time a call taker spends on a non-emergency call to time that they could be spending on a 911 call. This system also allows you to gain more reliability and reduce risk based on the cloud infrastructure, which we'll talk a little bit more about going forward. And this can very directly impact staffing shortages while improving efficiency. So to quantify that a little bit, we're seeing 30% usually as a baseline. And as John mentioned, Charleston's up to 50% call reduction for these non-emergency calls. Essentially, those calls are being answered by Amazon Connect and handled in an automated fashion without the need for human touch of those calls. Cost savings through automation, I'll show an ROI example here in a couple of slides. And then the citizen experience is a lot better. It's self-service, and as opposed to waiting on hold, talking to a call taker, doing all that manually. There's a preference in this day and age for folks to handle those calls in an automated way, if it's a natural language processing kind of scenario. So here's a use case. So a citizen calls into the non-emergency 10-digit non-emergency line, and instead of saying things in the past in a very rigid, structured way, saying animal control, with this system, you're able to say things like, "There's a dog barking in my neighbor's yard," and the system is smart enough to direct that to animal control. So that's the natural language processing piece that I mentioned, and it's a lot more it's a lot more technologically advanced and flexible than a traditional IVR. John, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think that ties in with a couple of the questions. So, and to Kevin's point, don't think of this as an auto attendant of, hey, you've reached this, press 1, press 2, press 3, very rigid in structure. This is a conversation. So you call in, and the solution that Jim was using 2.5, 3 years ago, drastically different than the one we have now. The solution Jim deployed was very rigid because the technology didn't exist yet. Remember, 3 years ago, we didn't have the AI tools that we have now. They simply didn't exist. So the way it acts now with natural language processing is, so that example, there's a dog barking in my neighbor's yard. 3 years ago in Charleston, you could not do that. 3 years ago, you had to say dog, animal control, police, some very, very structured keywords in a very structured format. And then there's a lookup table. And the system would try to match the words in the questions with the words in an answer in a spreadsheet. And if they couldn't match, then it didn't give you an answer. Now it's very, very different. So now we use natural language processing. So you just have a conversation. So you could do a couple things. You could have the bot answer the call directly, like answer the question. You could also program it where you could just forward it to animal control or forward it to the tax board or wherever you want to send them to. We don't recommend forwarding. We recommend giving people the answer and then sending them a text with the information that the bot just gave them. That way they don't call back. So, and we've all done this, right? We've called somewhere, got transferred, and then been like, oh, I forgot this. 2 hours later, you call back to the same exact number, right? Well, now you don't have to do that because you have a text and it has everything the bot told you with all the links, all the phone numbers, the hours, et cetera, et cetera. Can you integrate to CAD or RMS and create calls for service? Absolutely, you can. The challenge there is on the CAD side. So CDW and AWS, we have APIs that are open that can go into CAD. The CAD provider has to be willing to accept that. Right? That's not something that we can force them to do. We can build the interfaces, but we can't force them. So you can have somebody call in and say, hey, somebody broke into my shed over the weekend, not an emergency. I do want to file a police report for insurance. And it can capture that. It can auto create a CAD incident. It can put all the stamps and the timelines on that CAD incident that you want. And if you say, hey, in 6 hours, remind me of this, it will remind you in 6 hours of that. But that is on the CAD provider side. They have to be willing to accept the information and to integrate the APIs. So, Sean, does that answer your question? I hope that answers your question. And then, and if not, please just add some more to that. And then the technology translate out of the box. The new system is English, French, and Spanish. So out of the box, you could do English, French, and Spanish. And then there's 100 and some odd languages. I want to say 40 of those that you can do. You can program the bot in. So don't quote me on that. We can. It's easier to have a language requirement and ask CDW, can you do this language, than it is to give a list of languages, because there's dialects, there's issues. So that's a question you all can ask CDW, and obviously Kevin and I will support that. Security implications, we're going to hit that in a slide coming up. So I want to hold off on that slide, Kevin, or that question, Kevin, if that's okay, because I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I think we've addressed some of the questions so far and the common use case. Easiest way to think about it, folks, is, when you become that catch-all at 5 o'clock at night until 8 o'clock in the morning, when every other agency shuts down and they forward all their calls to you, this is a way for you to help mitigate some of that workload on your people. And we're going to get into a little bit more of the, not technical, because I'm not a technical person, and neither is Kevin, but we'll get into a little more of the how here in a minute. Is that fair, Kev, to and move on from here?
Yeah, that's great. We can jump back in. So a quick, I know most of the audience here are not technical folks. You guys are actual directors and operators of these PSAPs, but just for reference, a citizen calls in and leverages a variety of Amazon or AWS services that are packaged together to build this solution. So I'll talk a little bit more about our implementation timeline, but essentially start to finish, this is the 6-week implementation for CDW to come in and implement this work. These are the services that we consume on your behalf on the AWS side to set up the solution in your AWS environment, or if you don't have an AWS environment today, we'll help you create one and to build this in. But this is just a visual of some of the services that are consumed. This is really a black box to you guys. We come in and help with this implementation, get it set up for you, hand you the keys, make sure you're able to make updates, etc. And then we're there for ongoing help as needed. This is a little bit of the security, resiliency, and redundancy. And I'll ask John to speak a little bit on the structure of this slide.
Sure. So the easiest way to think about this is when CDW sets all this up, the way it works is that you keep your same non-emergency numbers. You can change them. It's actually easier if you change them, but we don't expect you to change them because the public already knows what the numbers are. So what's going to happen is you're going to work with your telco. The call comes in on your 7 or 10 digit lines and it hits the phone switch. It never rings on your call handling system. It's going to get forwarded at the telco level, and it gets forwarded and it gets forwarded to Amazon Connect. And then Amazon Connect's going to pick it up and it's going to ask. And then you're going to have a console that CDW does, right? And CDW is going to help you build all this out and build this out for you. And in that console, you're going to have all your kind of your documents, your resources, what your workflows you want to be, everything else is in this console. So then what you're going to do is basically that's your interface. And then the bot lives in the cloud. And when the call gets forwarded and the bot answers, the bot will reference all the knowledge base in the console to address the question. And so this all lives in the AWS infrastructure. So then by definition, now what you have is the way CDW has architected this. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but is a multi-availability zone architecture. And what does that mean? AWS has regions. Okay, just think of a region as a geographic area that has multiple data centers in it. Within each region, you have availability zones. Within each availability zone, you have data centers. Every region has at least 2, if not 3, availability zones. Every availability zone has at least 3 data centers. So what CDW has done to make sure that this has a very high resiliency and reliability is they've done cross-synchronous talking between availability zones. So and each availability zone is physically separated. They're separated by floodplain, by power grid, by earthquake fault lines, et cetera, et cetera. So what you would have to have is you'd have to have a data center go down, and then the other 2 data centers in that availability zone go down. And all that's going to happen is it's going to automatically switch to the next availability zone. And then if all 3 data centers within that go down, then it goes to the next one. And then it will go to the next region. So it's very high availability and very high resiliency for all this. And CDW has architected it specifically that way because of how important that is. So when you're talking about security, when the information is residing in AWS cloud infrastructure, you have all your FIPS, it's encrypted in transit, it's encrypted at rest. You have your CGIS addressed because AWS is approved CGIS compliant, not that that's the right word, but aligned with the CGIS security policies in all 50 states. So your PII, HIPAA, all that comes out of the box because of the way CDW has architected this with AWS infrastructure. So I think I answered the security question, and any other infrastructure questions, and then we're gonna jump back in here in a second. Kevin, did that kind of hit the what you want to hit here as far as reliability?
Yeah, that was great, John. And I think in summary, a good way to say it is AWS has built their infrastructure in a way that will help you achieve a lot higher resiliency and redundancy than you could ever achieve on your own premise, is one way to think about it. So we can talk more on that as needed. The next thing I wanted to do is just walk through an ROI example, and based on some common statistics. And I get that this is a busy slide. I'm happy to share this. I'm also happy to share this actual calculator with you for you to play with and plug your own numbers into. But I'm going to walk through this as a point of reference today. This was a recent customer that we worked with, and we chose some, well, I'll just walk through it. So their non-emergency call volume was 180,000 a year. That breaks down to 15,000 a month, 500 a day. If you're following me in column 1, the average call time was 150 seconds or 2.5 minutes. Total talk time monthly was 625 hours. The average call taker rate for their hourly wage is $31. Not sure if that was a loaded wage or an unloaded wage, but $31 an hour was our reference point. So the people investment monthly that was being directed to just to talking on these non-emergency calls, 19,000 a month based on that $31 an hour. So the people resource investment was about $232,000 a year for those 108,000 or 180,000 calls just based on talk time. The second column is what AI deflected. So we're deflecting 72,000 of those calls and all those same numbers going down in the middle, which leaves you with the remaining and essentially remaining costs left over there. So going down to the second piece of the table, the investment upfront, $60,000, and that's the professional services for CDW to come in and do this 6-week implementation, which I'll talk more about in my next slide. But this is a 6-week implementation, start to finish, ready for go live. It's not a project that is a multi-year project, huge lift. We come in with 80% of this solution configured and ready to go. We work with you on the final 20% to integrate it with your systems. We take the time to inform the bot, meaning we understand all your web pages that reference the information that you'd like to make available to customers. We can reference PDF documents. We can reference all kinds of content to inform this bot, in addition to giving you the tools and flexibility to just change this on the fly. There's some sort of emergency, there's something that's needed. You can literally go in and with a couple of keyboard strokes, update the language and the message and the direction that this bot is giving to your constituents. So long story short, in this example, $60,000 upfront was the professional services. You also will pay for the talk minutes and those AWS services that I showed earlier on. The estimate in this case was $9,000 a year for the AWS talk time and services consumption, and that's all usage only. And so if you end up making less calls, more calls, accepting more, you only pay for what you consume. So there's very little risk from that standpoint. So the year one investment projection was $69,000. That showed a savings, a first year savings of $23,000. The ROI on this was 9.3 months. So it paid for itself in the first year after 9.3 months, and then showed a savings of $83,000 a year over the next couple of years. Now that's just pure dollars and cents. That doesn't talk about the additional benefit of the call taker being able to spend less time quantified in this manner and redirect that time to 911 calls. So it's not going to talk to that specifically, but you could take these same metrics and apply them to your 911 stats and get some pretty good projection of what the impact will be. So the other opportunity is here. You're probably not going to, a lot of your PSAPs are understaffed. So this is not oftentimes direct ROI. This is cost avoidance, right? I don't need to hire an additional call taker, or I can hire one less person and become more efficient, or 2 less people, et cetera. So I mentioned this is a 6-week implementation. That includes planning and design, implementation, all the way up to go live support and project closure. We're not going to show up, implement this, and walk out the door. You're going to be very well trained on how to manage and operate this system going forward. We also get the question from some customers, hey, I've got a pretty small IT staff. I'm not sure I want to manage this at all. Can you guys manage this for me? The answer is yes. We have a managed services offering for the solution if you just want someone to manage this end to end and don't want to mess with it at all. So that's an option as well. And then we also have ongoing support that's not managed services, but if you just need some help, from time to time, we can support that through what we call elastic engineering, which is just you call us, hey, I need a block of 3 or 4 hours to do X, Y, Z, and we can support it from that standpoint. So those are the slides I had. We didn't want to slide you to death, but hopefully this was a good overview. I assume we've got some more questions in the chat after what I just went through. So I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions either for John or myself.
Yeah, there's a couple questions that I could answer. So I wanted to talk a little bit, and so it's terminology, but it's important terminology. On that ROI slide, there was AI deflection. Deflection may not be the right word to use. So it's what you're looking for is resolution, right? how many of the calls is the bot going to resolve that will not eventually require a human being? There's two different ways of thinking about it. You could deflect the call and just send it somewhere else. Right. So I get a call about a dog. I just send that to animal control. The bot doesn't do anything other than just forward it. All right. So what we're doing is both. So what we're doing is saying, hey, we want the bot to answer the call, like to not just physically answer, but like to address the issue and get the results to the human being. All right. That is true success rate to me. And then you could always have the ability, if you need more, or if you want to talk to them, hey, we can forward the call over to them as well. So our true measure of effectiveness is call resolution. Okay. So, and another good data point, I don't think I have permission yet to share the actual PSAB. They've been doing it for a couple of years. 9.5 hours a day is what they calculated that on human being work time that they are saving with the deployment of this use case. 9.5 hours a day. That's pretty significant amount of time that a human being doesn't have to deal with. A couple of questions. List of CAD vendors on the interface that already exist. What I would ask you to do, it gets touchy talking about CAD companies, and I don't want to list ones that make it sound like some are playing nicer than others. So what I would ask is reach out to CDW and ask them that question directly, and they could work with you and myself and the CAD vendors on that. So I know that's a crummy answer, Liz, but I'm trying to kind of walk that tightrope, if you will, on relationships. Can you transfer to 911 line? Absolutely. So there is the ability, CDW has the ability to do kind of keyword detection and things like that, that you could say, hey, if the bot is a little unsure, this could be an emergency, you working with CDW, you get to set those parameters. So, and what people tend to typically do is make them very, very conservative. So the bot probably sends more to 911 than it should. That's fine, right? And then you could tweak that. Once you learn, you could tweak it. Always recommend that when the bot answers the call, the very first thing it says is you've reached, X county non-emergency line. If this is an emergency, hang up and dial 911. Because even if it does transfer the call to 911, remember, this call is coming on a 7 or 10 digit line. You don't have any alley. So I know you want to keep them on the phone, and that's good, but you are losing a capability here. So there are some nuances, and we're working with CDW on this to try to bring in some kind of georeference with that. But as you all know better than I, the way the call is routed is going to affect that. Let's see. Can we get copies? We got that. Recordings. If you accidentally call, yeah. And this really came up with like, and I'll pick on Maine for an example. It's a great example. It was a rural county in Maine, and they're like, hey, we have 80-year-old guys that call up and they're like, hey, I really don't want to bother 911, but I cut 3 of my fingers off, and I probably need some help. And they do that on the non-emergency line, right? Just because they're like, I don't want to bug anybody. So yes, you need to get that to 911. So it is not an end all come all in the sense of you're locked into it. You have the ability with CDW's assistance to tweak this and make this what you want it to be. It is not a plug and play, here's your fixed solution. It is truly customizable. And that's where CDW's value comes in, is they will sit with you and say, what do you need? And then they will tweak it to your needs. So I want to make sure that's very, very, well, Kevin, I really want to make sure that people understand the customizability of this, right? And what CDW is willing to do to make this. It's not, here you go, you get what you get. It is, they're going to bring you an 80% solution, and then you're going to tell them, hey, guess what? That's actually a 60% solution for me because I need more. Well, fair enough. Do more, right? That's the way. So, Kev, I don't know if you want to hit on that a little bit or not, but I think that's an important point.
Yeah, I think, each of these implementations is one of one, right? Each of your PSAPs has your own uniqueness and challenges and opportunities. So, each of these implementations is slightly different. We will walk you through prescriptive guidance on, we'll come in with, hey, here, based on the work that we've done, that Amazon has done, here are the top 50 things that we're seeing across all the PSAPs, and you're probably going to check the box that most of that applies, but then you're going to have unique things that are just unique to you guys. And it could be language we had a call with the customer the other day that they have a population where Arabic is really, really prevalent and common in that particular municipality. And we talked through how to adjust for that, both from a content standpoint as well as from a language and processing standpoint. The other thing too, and I have seen a number of questions up both in the Q&A and the chat about different CAD programs. And just to reiterate with that, definitely reach out to me. Joelle, who's our technical resource for this, has put together a pretty comprehensive list of the cloud providers that we've identified that play nice and work well with this solution. And it's most of the common suspects that you would think, and most of the questions that we've gotten about different CAD providers, the answer's been yes, but certainly validate that with me as well.
So Andrew, there's a question in here I'd like to hit on, I'm sorry, Kevin, the question's from Andrew. As policies or call handling processes change, how hard is it to change the system treats different situations? Back to the customization of this system. So one of the things that CDW will do for you is once you get going is they're going to look and see, hey, what are people calling about, right? What are the topics? And are we answering the questions appropriately for the topics that are being addressed? So for instance, say that there is a marathon and you got a bunch of people calling and saying, hey, what's the route of the marathon? What are the road closures for the marathon? If the knowledge base does not have that answer, the bot's not going to know, right? You have to give it the knowledge base, and that could be a PDF, it could be a website, it could be et cetera, et cetera. So, but here's the nice thing. You may have 50 calls about the marathon route. The minute you go in and give that resource to the bot, give them the answer and address that workflow, the very next call that asks about a marathon gets the answer. So this isn't an IVR in the sense of you got to go and you got to reprogram the whole press 1, press 2, press 3. No, if you have new content, once you add the new content, the answer is there. The next question about that new content is addressed. So it's very, very customizable. And you can even go in, you can even change the greeting if you have like a significant event. Hey, there's a gas main leak, at 4th and Main. So, hey, you've reached the non-emergency number for city of X. If you're calling about the gas main leak at this, intersection, yes, this is all the places that are closed. Please stay away from the area. If you're not calling about this, how else can I help you? You just go in, you literally go into the console, you type in a new greeting, you hit save, that's the new greeting. It is that customizable. Kevin, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation the other day with a customer who is one of the World Cup cities next year for 2026, and they're looking at using this solution leading up to the World Cup. They anticipate there's going to be 1.5 million extra people in their city for about a month. And the challenges that come with that hey, there's new languages that we might want to support. There's just new challenges, but that's really a temporary thing. That's a spot in time. So they're building the solution for non-emergency, but they want to account for and think ahead about what are these upcoming events. The same flexibility can be, that one's nice because we've got plenty of time. There's not a huge rush for that. Conversely, though, you guys deal in a world where you're dealing with emergencies, and so if there's a natural disaster, as an example, hurricane, tornadoes in Kansas City last week, and you're able to adjust your prompts on the fly, and feed new information. To John's point, information about, hey, there's a Red Cross shelter set up here. There's a meeting point here. All of that stuff is available to be done in real time, much easier than even what you had to do trying to update an IVR in the past. Literally, those are 5-minute. Hey, you're just tweaking and you're up and going. It'll give you a lot more ability to be dynamic in those messages.
And one thing that we've actually not intentionally, but now I'm realizing we kind of did a poor job of this is everyone associates this with a 911 solution. This is not a 911 non-emergency solution. This is an information solution. So it works for your emergency management department, right? It works for your public works department. And I'm assuming that a lot of you get these kind of calls when those departments go home for the day. So it's not just, your typical PSAP type stuff. So when it comes to ROI, how many would it be? I don't know how many of you have the data that would show how many of your calls are about public works versus animal control versus this versus that. And I'll give you a good example. It was Charleston. So Charleston started using the system and started realizing that they were getting like 5-ish%, don't quote me, but 5-ish% of their calls were about what color trash can to put out for trash day. And Jim's like, this is ridiculous. Why are we getting these calls? So he went to the sanitation department or whatever you call them in Charleston and said, hey, we need your help. Can you, do a little public service and let people know? And they did the public service announcement, and then calls about trash cans went down by like 50%. So they're informing the public of where do you find the right answer, and then they're not calling back about the same answer. So that's really the squishy ROI that's a little harder. Kevin showed hard numbers, right? And that's good, right? That's math. That's going to show the hard numbers. It's all the other stuff, because one thing we haven't talked about, Kev, is the analytics. And the analytics that come with this are by far the most valuable aspect of this, because you are going to learn every call that comes in, what the content of the call is. You can use all kinds of cool AI tools that CDW will help you with to rack and stack them and to show. And then you could go to animal control and say, hey, if you're going to do a adoption thing, please, let people know X, Y, and Z, because they're calling us about this, right? The insights you're going to have to your non-emergency call content is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Kevin, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the analytics or anything that you guys are doing with that? Because I think that's a point we haven't really addressed yet.
Yeah, great point. I actually had that written down to talk about here. And as I said at the beginning, I inherited these slides, and there's typically one in there that shows a dashboard of the reporting. But to John's point, yes, there's significant reporting available. All of the usual things that you would expect in a call center type solution, all of that's there for sure, and lots of flexible ways to address that. But to John's point, there's advanced analytics and reporting available on not just the calls, but the content of the calls. We're able to track sentiment analysis, so we're going to understand if a caller was, had an angry tone versus a happy tone, if you care about that. So the level of detail and reporting that you can get is significant, and I'm happy to show that in another call or one-off if you'd like to get deeper onto the reporting. But suffice to say, it's substantial, all the things you would expect, and we've got some neat use cases of how customers have adapted their analytics as a result.
Another question, Kev, it's about recording. So from the AWS side of the house, CDW can help you record this and record the audio. It is not going to record the audio on its own. There's another service, AWS service, that can be used to record the audio, but you can integrate this with your on-prem recorder or your cloud-based recorder. So there are options of that. Remember though, all the information, because this is all happening in AWS and your account, CDW's account, however that is done, the information is stored in the cloud. So that information is there, you have it. What you won't have is the entire call audio. You can, absolutely you can, if you want it. You could have the call audio, but you're going to have all the metrics, you're going to have the sentiment analysis or the sentiment, you're going to have the keywords. That's all stored by default because it's in the cloud. So it's already there. There was a question that was answered about turned on and turned off. I'm going to throw out one caveat to this. You're working with your telco, and we all know that could be challenging. Okay, the telco controls the ability to turn this on or off. Yes, you can turn it off. It's just how quickly does that happen with your telco, and the relationship you have with that. And CDW obviously can assist with that. The CAD servers do not have to be cloud-based to integrate. There are ways to do that with on-prem CAD systems to answer that question. And let's see, CGIS compliant, yeah. So if once the data is in AWS, whether that be your local AWS account, CDW's account, et cetera, everything that complies with the CGIS security policy is in play. So AWS has a letter from the FBI CGIS division that says that for the GovCloud regions, all 50 states are in compliance with CGIS security policy. And for our standard regions, I think there are 48 states that are in compliance with the CGIS security policy. So yes, you're good with NCIC and CGIS. And yes, it is relevant once you start talking with CAD, et cetera. It's just out of the box. If the data is in AWS, by definition, per the FBI's CGIS portal, it is compliant with the security policy. I know compliance is not the right word. I keep using compliant, but I think you guys know what I'm saying. I can't remember what the actual proper word is. On-prem recorders require an interface to be built. So there's yes, there's going to be an API call. There's going to be something there. So that would be, Kevin, the last question. Do on-prem recorders require an interface to be built? That's going to be more for the CDW technical side on how they will integrate that. I don't want to jump in and steal their thunder on that. And then Kevin, it's probably a question better held for, a technical deep dive, right?
Agreed. Yeah, we can certainly handle that. There's different approaches to that is the short answer. So we can typically accommodate what you're trying to, how you're trying to, but to John's point, probably better for a little bit deeper dive.
And here's an interesting kind of use case. So let's say, not that this would ever happen, that you have a CAD company that is being a little bit reluctant to integrate. What some centers have done is they have leveraged either a city or a county website or created their own website. So what they're doing is they're creating a reports request portal. So people could go in there and say, hey, there's a pothole here, right? Or I need this or I need that. They could do that on a website. And what they've done is they've integrated all these connect flows into that website. So basically the bot can collect all the information on a pothole, and then the bot talks to the website and populates the information on the website, which goes to a ticketing system. That's internal to the city or the county. So if you have internal mechanisms where you do, how do I order a new trash can, right? Or I don't know, how do I report a pothole, whatever. There's ways, they're very, very simple, because if you own it, then you know what the code is. So CDW can help you with that API because it's your website. So it becomes very, very simple. You don't have to have a third party do something. So Charleston's done that. They have a website called, I think it's called 911 Help Me or Help Me 911. And that is where Charleston has gotten this 50+% success rate, because the integration between the website and their Connect deployment. And what they have found is what we all want. What they are seeing is calls to the non-emergency lines have decreased. Hits on the website have increased, because now the public is learning where to find the information. So they're just going right there. So instead of calling you at midnight to ask about, how to, what temperature to cook a turkey, right? They could go to the website and they could find that. I always pull out these fun ones that I got. I didn't realize that was an actual 911 call, but somebody did call 911 asking what temperature to cook a turkey. But anyway, so what else we got, Kevin?
John, can you talk a little bit about using a chatbot in conjunction with this solution, just at a high level?
Yeah, so the really nice thing about when we're talking about Connect is omni-channel. So anything that you do in any one channel is automatically applied in others, meaning, what does that mean? So if you have a conversation with the bot, that means you could also text the bot. You could also chat with the bot. So, and CDW and you don't have to have processes and workflows for audio, processes and workflows for text, and processes and workflows for chat. Once it's in the system, it's in the system. It doesn't matter. The bot doesn't, it's irrelevant to the bot. Anything the bot says, you can send via text. So if I'm talking to the bot at the end of the interaction, typically what we've seen has been very helpful is the bot will say, hey, I believe I've addressed your question. Would you like me to send you the information I just presented? And if you say yes, the bot will send a text and it will be the same exact narrative. And if there's a website in there, it will hyperlink it. If there's a phone number in it, it will hyperlink it. So all you have to do is click on the hyperlink and you can dial it from your phone. So it integrates all those together. That is not more work. It's just out of the box. That's just the way the system works. So having audio and having chat and having text really provides, because then it's, hey, my parents are 80, right? They're not going to text with a bot. They're going to want to talk. And now with some of the new things that CDW and us that we're working on, the natural language is becoming so realistic that eventually you're not going to even know you're talking to a bot. By the way, I would always make sure you tell people that first, because if they find out they were talking to a bot and they didn't know it, they get really mad. So you just always let them, hey, this is the automated system, blah, 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 because people get really freaked out when they're talking to a bot. I mean, this stuff is getting so good that I was reading a report. There was an apartment complex in New York that uses bots to like answer questions. And in like a month, the bot got asked out by 3 guys because they thought they were actually talking to a woman. That's how realistic it sounded. Pretty funny story. Can you text without calling this solution? Yes, you can text directly to it. Yep, absolutely. Or you could chat if you're online. You could also chat.
Yep, you could drop the bot into, if you've got a 311 app, you could drop the bot into that. If you've got an app on your website, you can do that. The other thing that along the same line, that question we get from customers a lot is, what can you create a case, right? Can you create a ticket? The answer to that is yes. Some of you guys work with systems that if you put in a call taker may put in a ticket for another department and route that, et cetera. We can automate that. That's absolutely doable, very easy to do. We can also set up, we can, in addition to just texting the constituent back, we could also create a case and route it to that particular department, either by email or through a ServiceNow case or through some other mechanism. That is included in the implementation cost out of the box. So there's no extra cost for that, but that is part of the initial implementation as well.
So Rave, I'll defer to CDW to track that down on the integration with RAID. Connect is an open API. It's published on the web. So Connect will integrate with anything that is willing to accept the API. So it's wide open. So the issue is never going to be on the CDW or AWS side. I can guarantee you that. So the only issue would be on another entity's willingness to accept that API. So that really, so here's kind of the best case scenario. You want to automate this entire process. Somebody is doing this. I can't say the CAD in the RMS. They have set up a system where you can type in, a tow or a non-emergency police, I want to file a police report. You can do all this through Connect. The bot captures all the information. It populates CAD, creates a CAD incident. Somebody responds to that CAD incident, updates the CAD incident, goes into RMS, and then the caller can call back 3 days later and say, hey, I need an update on the status of this report. And then the bot will say, please type in your report number. You type in the report number, the bot will reach into RMS, get an update on the report, and send that back to you, and all without a human being involved. That is being done today, but that requires multiple integrations with multiple systems. CDW can certainly do that, but the receiving system has to be willing to play nice. I can't stress that enough. I know I'm a broken record, but I don't want you to think it's on CDW that this can't be done. The CAD provider, the RMS provider, or the database provider has to be willing to play nice.
Thanks, John.
But I just want to, that's kind of the ultimate, right, Kevin? That's like the best case scenario, right? I do everything autonomously. I don't have to bother a human, and I get updates on, what's happening, and you have to tie in multiple systems to do that.
Sure. The utopian view.
Exactly. Yeah.
So a couple things. I want to be respectful of time, and I'll wrap up quickly here, but I get a question about contract vehicles a lot. So CDW has many contract vehicles in place with customers in every state and a variety of national procurement vehicles as well. Happy to talk to you one-off on that, but we can certainly find a contract vehicle to help get you what you need directly without having to go through an RFP process with a contract we can leverage, et cetera. As mentioned, this is a 6-week project. This can be live and implemented very quickly. So how do you inquire about next steps? There's 2 things. I'm going to send you the slides from this along with a link to the recording this afternoon via email. And I would suggest set up a 30-minute call with me. There'll be a link in the chat with, or in the email with a link to my calendar. So you can literally just pull up my calendar and say, I want 30 minutes, and it'll show you all my available openings. And from that, I can get you a sample project plan with a cost, with an ROI calculation like I shared after that 30-minute conversation. So this is, and then we may have to have additional discussions on things that might be unique or clarification on that project plan. But I can get you a project plan after a quick 30-minute call with just the basic statistics that I showed in that ROI calculator, which are call volume per month, non-emergency calls, hourly wage for a call taker, average length of call, etc. And we can play with the percentage of the, and thanks, John, for correcting me on that. That was not an AI deflected rate. That was a case resolved rate. Better terminology for that. So thank you. But with that, you'll have that information from me directly this afternoon. Look for an email from Kevin Brooks. And I will copy John as well to those of you who actually attended. If there's any other questions, I will pause there. And I think there's one question that just came
there's
in.
one last question. Great question to wrap it up. You control your knowledge base. So you put it in a box. So this is not going to the internet to find the answer. You dump your knowledge base with CDW's help, right, into the repository. The bot will only pull from that knowledge base. Now you can scrape websites, you could do et cetera, et cetera. That's up to you. You can do that. If it's your website, that's fine, right? You can scrape the website. But it's not going to just reach out to the general internet to try to find the answer. You control the knowledge base. So think about this, guys. Throw in your Procure protocols, right? Throw in this, throw in that. You can throw everything you want into these knowledge bases. It's the more you put in, the more accurate the bot is going to be. So don't hold back, because and everything that's in that account falls with all those security and compliance things I talked about earlier. So it is going to stay secure, and it is going to be highly available due to the discussion we had earlier. That's all I got, Kev.
Well, I want to thank John. Sincerely appreciate your time today. You're a great resource for this solution, and obviously well-versed in this space. And I want to thank all the attendees today. Really appreciate you taking some time. I look forward to talking with each of you as we go forward, and don't hesitate to reach out with questions, and we will talk with you soon. Thank you so much. Appreciate it all.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.